3 brides, 3 graves. That is what everyone knows. That is what makes the noble women press themselves against the walls of the great hall, eyes down, hands trembling, when the Alpha King calls for a fourth. He stands on the dais like a man carved from winter itself. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that might have been handsome once, before grief hollowed it out. Choose, his chancellor had told him. The kingdom needs an heir. The bloodline must continue. So the king stands and waits. And one by one, every eligible woman in the realm refuses. Cursed, they whisper. Death follows him. Not even his own mother survived his birth. The guards shift. The chancellor frowns. The silence stretches like a blade being drawn, and then she steps forward. Small, quiet. A faded dress mended too many times. A child balanced on her hip. A little girl with wide eyes and a closed mouth. An Omega. From the dying villages near the border. No title. No family crest. Nothing but the dust of a long road still clinging to her hem. The court forgets how to breathe. Because this woman, this nobody, has just walked into the center of the great hall and stopped directly in front of the most feared alpha in the realm. She looks up at him. She does not bow. I accept, she says. And the king, the man who has buried 3 brides, who has not smiled in 4 years, who the entire kingdom believes is cursed, goes very, very still. So now the court is wondering, why would one quiet Omega accept what every noblewoman refused? And why does the king look at her like she has just set fire to something he thought was already ash? Vera had made her peace with death long before she entered the great hall. It had happened slowly, the way ice claims a river in winter. First the crops failed. Then the sickness came. Then the pyres began burning every night until the smoke became more familiar than clean air. Thornwick was dying. Her village, her home, the only place she had ever belonged, and no one was coming to save it. The crown had stopped sending supplies 3 months ago. Resources are limited, the messenger had said. The king has priorities. Vera had watched the last healer die 2 weeks later, had held old Maren's hand while she coughed blood onto the pillow and whispered, "Take care of them. Promise me." She had promised. And then she had heard about the bride selection, the Alpha King's 4th attempt to find a mate. Every eligible woman in the realm was being summoned to the capital. Rumors said he was offering unprecedented dowries. Rumors also said every woman he had chosen had died within weeks. Vera did not care about rumors. She cared about the 300 people still alive in Thornwick. She cared about the grain stores that would be empty by winter's end. She cared about the children who no longer had the strength to cry. And she cared about Wren. The little girl on her hip stirred, pressing her face against Vera's shoulder. 6 years old, mute since the fever took her mother. She had survived alone in an abandoned cottage for 3 days before Vera found her, curled beneath a table, clutching her dead mother's shawl. She had not spoken since, but she clung to Vera like a small, silent shadow. And Vera had decided, somewhere between the burned-out fields and the empty medicine stores, that she would keep this child alive, no matter the cost. Even this. The great hall of Ashenmore was vast. Black stone walls, iron chandeliers, banners the color of dried blood hanging from the vaulted ceiling. It smelled of cold metal and something older. Power, perhaps, or fear. Vera stood at the back of the crowd. She was the smallest, the poorest, the only Omega in a room full of alphas and betas. She could feel their stares, could hear the whispers. Who let her in? Is that a peasant? She ignored them. She had become very good at ignoring things that did not matter. One by one, the noble women were called forward. One by one, they refused. "I cannot, Your Majesty. My health would not permit the journey north. My father requires my presence at home. I am promised to the temple." The king watched each refusal with the same expression. Nothing. An emptiness that went deeper than indifference. His chancellor stood beside him. A thin man with silver hair and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Lord Corvain. Vera had heard that name on the road. The king's closest advisor, the only person who had remained loyal through the deaths, the rumors, the slow unraveling of the crown. Your Majesty, Corvain murmured. Perhaps we should conclude for today. The king's jaw tightened, and Vera moved. She did not remember deciding. Her feet simply carried her forward until she stood in the open space before the dais. The silence that fell was absolute. Ren's arms tightened around her neck. Vera rubbed the child's back gently. The king looked down at her. Dark eyes, sharp cheekbones, a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He was larger than she had expected. Taller, broader. The kind of build that came from warfare, not ceremony. He looks tired, Vera thought. He looks like he has not slept in years. You, he said. His voice was low, rough, like something unused. What is your name? Vera, of Thornwick. A murmur rippled through the hall. Thornwick, the dying village, the forgotten one. You are an Omega. It was not a question. Yes. You have no title, no family, no dowry. He studied her. Why are you here? Vera met his gaze. She was aware, distantly, that she should be afraid. Every instinct should be screaming at her to bow, to submit, to bare her throat. But she had buried too many people this year to fear one more death. Because someone should be, she said. The king went still. Behind him, Lord Corvain's expression sharpened. You know what they say about me, the king said. The curse, the deaths. I know. And you still came forward? Yes. He descended one step, then another. The crowd pressed back, but Vera did not move. He stopped directly in front of her. This close she could smell him, pine, smoke, something wild beneath the surface. Alpha. Every cell in her body recognized it. Why? He asked. Vera thought of Thornwick, of Marin's grave, of Ren's silent tears. Because I am already living with death, she said. Yours does not frighten me. Something cracked in his expression. Just for a moment. Then it was gone. You are either very brave, the king said, or very foolish. I have been called both. His eyes dropped to Ren, who was watching him with her wide, unblinking gaze. The child, he said. She is yours? She is mine now. He looked at Vera again. Longer this time, searching. Then he extended his hand. Then may the gods have mercy on you, he said, because I cannot promise I will. Vera took his hand. Behind them, the court erupted in whispers, and in the shadows beside the throne, Lord Corvain watched with eyes like a snake scenting prey. The king had stopped believing in gods the night his second bride stopped breathing. She had been sweet, nervous, a minor noble's daughter with kind eyes and a trembling laugh. She had looked at him like he was a monster and tried valiantly to pretend otherwise. 3 weeks. That was all they had. He had woken one morning to find her cold beside him. No wound, no poison they could trace, just gone. The first bride had been arranged by his father, a political match, all strategy, no warmth. She had died 4 days after the engagement announcement. A fall down the stairs, they said. An accident. Calder had not believed it. The third bride had been his own desperate attempt to break the pattern, a warrior woman from the eastern clans. Strong, fearless. Surely death could not take her. She had lasted 2 weeks. After that, Calder stopped trying, stopped hoping, stopped letting himself feel anything at all, because feeling meant acknowledging that everyone who came close to him died. Cursed, the kingdom whispered. Monster, they thought but did not say. Perhaps they were right. And now this woman, this small, quiet Omega with her mended dress and her silent child, had walked willingly into his hall and taken his hand. Calder did not understand it. He stood at the window of his chambers now, watching the courtyard below. Servants were escorting her to the west wing, the guest quarters. He had refused to place her in the queen's chambers. Not yet. Not until he understood what he was dealing with. Or until she dies, like the others. A knock sounded at the door. Calder did not turn. Enter. Lord Corvain's footsteps were soft, measured. Your Majesty. A pause. That was unexpected. Which part? All of it. Corvain stopped beside him. An Omega with no family, no title, no political value, and a child no less. The council will have concerns. The council can choke on their concerns. They will say she is unsuitable. They said the same about the last 3. Calder's voice was flat. And the last 3 are dead. Perhaps unsuitable is what I need. Corvain was quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, gentle. Your Majesty, I know you carry guilt for what has happened, but this woman... He shook his head. She is not your salvation. She is a peasant Omega who saw an opportunity. Calder finally turned. His chancellor stood in a pool of candlelight, expression arranged into perfect concern. He has been with me through all of it, Calder reminded himself. The deaths, the accusations, the isolation. He stayed when everyone else fled. What opportunity? Calder asked. To die? To elevate herself? To bring her village out of poverty? Corvain's smile was sympathetic. People do desperate things when they are desperate. It does not make them special. Calder said nothing, but something sat wrong in his chest. She did not smell like desperation. He had been close enough to scent her properly. Pine soap, road dust, the faint sweetness of milk from the child. But beneath all of that, something else. Something steady and entirely unafraid. Omegas feared alphas. It was instinct, biology, survival. But she had looked at him like he was just a man. A tired, scarred man standing in a too large hall. No one has looked at me like that in years. Send her away, Corvain said softly. Before it is too late. Calder looked at his chancellor, at the concern in his eyes. No, he heard himself say. Corvain's expression flickered. Your Majesty. I said no. Calder turned back to the window. Below, the small figure had paused in the courtyard. The child in her arms was pointing at something, a raven on the wall. The woman smiled. It was a small thing, barely a curve of the lips, but it transformed her face entirely. She stays, he said, for now. Behind him, Corvain bowed. As you wish, Your Majesty. His footsteps retreated. The door closed, and Calder stood alone, watching the woman who had just volunteered to share his curse. Why did you come? He wondered. What are you not telling me? Below, Vera turned her face up toward the castle. For a single heartbeat, it seemed like she was looking directly at him. Then she disappeared into the shadows of the western entrance. And in the corridor beyond the king's chambers, Lord Corvain paused. His expression was no longer concerned. It was calculating. Another one, he thought. Interesting. He smiled and walked into the dark. The chambers they gave her were larger than the entire house Vera had grown up in. A canopied bed draped in deep blue. Furs piled thick enough to sink into. A fireplace already burning. Windows that looked out over a garden she could not imagine walking through. It was obscene. She thought of the children in Thornwick sleeping 3 to a bed because there were not enough blankets. But she said nothing, smiled politely at the servants. You are here for them, she reminded herself. Endure this, survive this, and they will live. Wren sat on the massive bed, watching everything with her silent, watchful gaze. Vera crossed to her, knelt. Strange, isn't it? She said softly. All this space. Wren nodded. We will get used to it, and if we do not, we will pretend. Something almost like a smile ghosted across Wren's face. A knock at the door. A woman entered, older, gray-haired, with the careful posture of someone who had spent decades navigating palace politics. I am Brannock, she said. I have been assigned to attend you during your stay. During my stay, not as the future queen. Vera noted the distinction. Thank you, Branna. The woman's eyes moved to Ren. The child. She is yours? She is. She does not speak? Not anymore. Branna nodded. She did not ask why. That alone made Vera like her. The older woman hesitated at the door, turned back. The last three, she said. The brides. Vera's stomach tightened. Yes? They were kind women. Good women. They did not deserve what happened to them. What did happen to them? Silence stretched. No one knows, Brannock said finally. They simply stopped breathing. One moment alive, the next gone. No marks, no poison, nothing. Vera absorbed this. You think the king? No. The word came quick and fierce. His Majesty would never harm a woman. I have served this household for 30 years. I knew him as a boy. Whatever is happening, it is not him. But it is something. And you should be careful, my lady. She left before Vera could respond. The fire crackled. Ren had curled onto her side, eyes already growing heavy. Vera pulled the furs over her small body and stood at the window. 3 brides. All dead. No explanation. She should be terrified. But Vera had stopped being afraid the night she walked through a fever ward to hold dying strangers because no one else would. Something is killing them. And if I do not find out what, I will be next. She waited until Ren's breathing deepened into sleep. Then she slipped out, silent as smoke. The castle at night was a different creature, shadows pooling in corners, torches burning low. Vera moved through the corridors carefully. Years of sneaking through woods to check hunting traps had taught her how to move without being heard. A sound made her freeze. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Rhythmic, violent. She followed it. The corridor opened onto an interior courtyard. Training dummies lined one wall, and in the center, lit by a single torch, the king. He wore no shirt despite the cold. His back was to her, scarred, muscled, gleaming with sweat. He was driving his fists into a training post with brutal precision. His knuckles were bleeding. He did not stop. Vera watched for a long moment, the controlled violence, the way his shoulders hunched like a man carrying weight that never lifted. He is not sleeping either. She should leave. Instead, she stepped forward. His head snapped toward her instantly, wolf instincts. His eyes found her in the dark, and she watched surprise shift to wariness, then to carefully constructed blankness. You should be sleeping, he said. So should you. For a moment, something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Fair point. He turned from the post, wrapped a cloth around his bloodied hands without looking at them. Why are you out here? He asked. I could not sleep. Strange place. She paused. Lots of ghosts, I imagine. His expression shuddered. The servants talk, Vera said. About the others. Your previous brides. Do they? They say no one knows what happened. He said nothing. Is that true? Still nothing. Vera stepped closer. Your Majesty, if I am going to die here, I would at least like to know why. His eyes snapped to hers. Dark. Furious. Aching. If I knew why, he said, each word measured, do you think I would have let it happen 3 times? She held his gaze, found nothing but raw, unguarded pain. You do not know, she said. You genuinely do not know. No. The word came out rough. I wake up beside them and they are cold. I search for answers and there are none. His hands were shaking. I stopped touching them, he whispered. After the second one, I thought maybe it was me, some sickness in my blood. So I kept my distance. Separate chambers, separate meals. He looked at his hands like they belonged to a stranger. She still died? Vera felt something shift in her chest. Someone is killing them, she said. His head came up. 3 women, all healthy, all dying the same way. No marks, no poison anyone can trace. That is not a curse, Your Majesty. That is a murderer. His eyes widened. Who? He demanded. I do not know. Yet. She met his gaze. But I intend to find out. Silence fell between them. Heavy. Electric. Why? He asked. Why would you risk yourself for this? Because you looked at Ren today, she said, and you did not see a burden. You saw a child. And a man who sees children as children is not a man who murders women in their sleep. He stared at her like she had spoken in a language he had forgotten he understood. You barely know me, he said. I know enough. For a moment he almost smiled. Then his expression sobered. What really happened to them? Vera asked. Before. Who did they speak with? The servants, the chancellor, the usual court officials. Lord Corvain? Of course. He manages the household affairs. He met with all of them regarding protocols and... He stopped. All three of them? She asked carefully. He met privately with all three? The king went very still. Yes, he said. He did. Their eyes met, and for the first time since she had arrived, Vera saw something in the Alpha King's gaze that was not grief. It was suspicion. The days that followed were unlike anything Calder had experienced in years. It began with small things. Vera appearing at breakfast, asking where the kitchens were because she preferred to make the child's porridge herself. The way she walked through the castle like she belonged there, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. The council meetings continued. The petitions piled up. The kingdom's endless demands pressed against him. But now there was something else. Now there was a woman who looked at him without fear. A child who watched him with curious eyes. A presence that felt less like a countdown to death and more like something he could not name. He found himself seeking them out. It was subtle at first. Walking through the west wing when he had no reason to. Pausing in the garden when he saw Ren chasing birds. Arriving at meals earlier than necessary. On the fifth morning, he found them in the library. Ren was curled in a massive armchair, a picture book open across her lap. Vera sat on the floor beside her, pointing at illustrations. That is a dragon, Vera was saying. They breathe fire. Very impolite at dinner parties. Ren's mouth twitched. And that is a knight. They wear too much metal and fall over a lot. Ren's shoulders shook. Silent laughter. Calder stood in the doorway, transfixed. When was the last time anyone laughed in this castle? Vera looked up, saw him. Her expression did not change. Your Majesty. Vera. He moved into the room. Ren watched his approach with those wide, solemn eyes. He crouched beside the chair. What are you reading? He asked. Ren tilted the book toward him. A faded illustration of a wolf filled the page, silver-furred, proud, and standing on a moonlit cliff. Ah, he said, the old legends. My nursemaids used to read these. They said my mother loved them before she died. The words left his mouth before he could stop them. He never spoke of his mother. Vera was watching him. What was she like? She asked. Your mother. She died giving birth to me. I never knew her. He paused. But they say she was kind. Silence fell, but it was not uncomfortable. Vera did not offer platitudes. She simply let the words exist. Ren reached out. Calder froze. Her small hand touched his, the one still wrapped in cloth from his late-night training. She traced her fingers over the bandage. Then she pressed her palm flat against his. His throat burned. She is not afraid of me. She does not do that, Vera said softly. She has not touched anyone willingly since... She did not finish. Calder looked at the small hand pressed against his. Hope. The word surfaced unbidden. Would you like to see the wolves? He heard himself ask. Ren's eyes went wide. The king's wolves. The pack that runs with me. They are gentle with children. Ren looked at Vera. Vera smiled. Unguarded. Warm. I think that sounds like an adventure. The wolves were kept in a sprawling enclosure beyond the eastern wall. 12 of them, ranging from gray-muzzled elders to yearlings still growing into their paws. They gathered at the fence when Calder approached. The largest, a scarred female named Senna, pushed her muzzle through the slats. Ren pressed against Vera's leg. "They will not hurt you," Calder said. He crouched, letting Senna sniff his hand. "They are pack. Family." He held out his hand to Ren. She hesitated, looked at Vera. Vera nodded. Ren stepped forward, placed her hand in Calder's, let him guide her closer. Senna's great head turned. Yellow eyes studied the child. Then, very gently, she pressed her nose against the slats, right where Ren's fingers rested. Ren's breath caught. Senna made a sound, low, rumbling, not a growl. Something softer. Greeting, Calder realized. She is greeting the child. Ren's face transformed. Wonder, maybe. Or the first stirrings of joy she had felt in a very long time. She turned to Calder and smiled. His heart stopped. "She likes you," he managed. Ren nodded fiercely. She turned back to Senna, stroking the wolf's muzzle with small, reverent fingers. Behind him, Vera made a sound. When he turned, her eyes were wet. "Thank you," she whispered. "I have done nothing." "You have done more than you know." Their eyes held. Something passed between them, fragile, unnamed. Then Ren tugged at his sleeve, pointing excitedly at a wolf pup that had tumbled into view, and Calder smiled. He did not notice the figure watching from the castle wall. Lord Corvain stood in the shadow of a parapet. His expression was not pleased. 2 weeks passed. Vera learned the castle's rhythms, which corridors the servants used at dawn, where the guards changed shifts, which stairs creaked. She learned the people, too. Branna, who brought extra blankets without being asked, the cook's boy who saved scraps for Ren, the stable master who let the child pet the horses, and she learned the king. He was not what the stories claimed, not the monster, not the tyrant. He was awkward in kindness, like a man relearning a language he had once been fluent in, but he came back. Every time. He came back. Ren had claimed him entirely. She followed him through the castle like a small shadow, sat beside him at meals, fell asleep against his shoulder when he read to her. And Calder, the fearsome alpha king who had buried 3 brides, let her. He is gentle, Vera thought. Underneath all that armor, he is gentle. It made what she had discovered that much harder to bear. She had not stopped investigating. Late nights spent listening at doors. Careful questions asked of servants, piecing together the timeline of each bride's final days. And all roads led to the same place, Lord Corvain. He had met with each bride privately, had been present at their final meals, had access to every corner of the castle. But she had no proof. Nothing concrete. So she kept watching and waiting. Until the night everything changed. It started with screaming. Vera jolted awake. Ren was sitting up beside her, clutching her shawl, eyes wide. "Stay here," Vera whispered. "Lock the door. Do not open it for anyone but me or Brannog." She was already running. The screams were coming from the king's chambers. Deep, guttural, agonized. Guards clustered in the corridor, weapons drawn and faces pale. "What is happening?" Vera demanded. "The king! We cannot!" Another scream ripped through the air. Glass shattered. Vera pushed through them, threw open the door. The king's chambers were destroyed, furniture overturned, deep gouges carved into the stone floor by claws no human should possess, and in the center stood Calder, half-shifted, caught between forms. His body twisted, bones cracking and reforming, fur rippling across skin that could not decide what shape to hold. His eyes were wild, unseeing, agonized, trapped. He roared, "Your Majesty!" A guard stepped forward, sword raised. "Stop!" Vera threw herself between them. "You will only make it worse. He is losing control. He is not—" She stopped, looked at Calder, at the way his body fought itself. This was not natural. Poison, she realized. "Get the healer," she ordered. Now! The guard ran. Vera turned back to Calder. He was pacing. Jerky, violent movements. His eyes found her, but there was no recognition, only pain. He is trapped inside himself. She thought of Ren, of the way the child had reached out to Calder, had seen through to the gentleness beneath. Connection, Vera thought. That is what brings people back. She stepped forward. Vera, no. Branai's voice came from the doorway. Vera ignored her. Calder, she said softly. The wolfman snarled, claws raked the air inches from her face. She did not flinch. Calder, I am here. Another step. His breathing was ragged. I know you are in there. Whatever is happening, it is not you. His eyes flickered. You showed Ren the wolves. You read her stories. You smiled at her yesterday. She kept her voice steady. That is who you are. A sound escaped him. Something broken. Come back, she whispered. Please. She reached out, touched his face. His skin burned. Fever hot. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the shift reversed. Bones reshaping, fur receding, until Calder knelt before her, human again, gasping. He looked up at her. Did I hurt anyone? He rasped. No. He closed his eyes. Relief flooded his features. Then he collapsed. Vera caught him, cradled his head in her lap. Branna appeared beside her. What happened? He was poisoned. Something that triggered an uncontrolled shift. Poisoned? But who? I need you to collect samples from everything the king consumed tonight. Take them to someone you trust absolutely. Brannig's face went still. You think someone in this castle is trying to kill him? I think someone has been trying to destroy him for a very long time, and I think the brides were just part of it. Branner nodded. I will do it tonight. There is an herbalist in the lower town. Thank you. Branna paused at the door. You should know. The one who brought the king his wine tonight. It was Lord Corvain. Vera's blood went cold. He insisted, Branna continued. Said he wanted to personally ensure the king's comfort. The older woman's eyes met hers. Be careful, my lady. Men like Corvain do not lose gracefully. She left, and Vera sat alone in the ruined chamber, holding the king, wondering how long they had before the snake struck again. He woke to candlelight and a ceiling he recognized, his own chambers. But something was different. He was not alone. Vera sat in a chair beside his bed, her head bowed, her eyes closed, asleep, still wearing the same dress from... when? Last night? 2 nights ago? And curled against his side, small and warm, was Ren. Calder stared at the sleeping child, at the small hand fisted in his shirt, at the absolute trust in her relaxed features. His throat burned. She stayed. They both stayed. He tried to move. Every muscle screamed in protest. Vera's eyes opened. You are awake. Her voice was rough with exhaustion. How long? 2 days. She leaned forward. How do you feel? Like death. That is because you almost died. He absorbed this. The shift. I lost control. You were poisoned. The word landed like a blade. Something in your wine, Vera continued. An herbalist confirmed it. A compound that destabilizes the bond between wolf and man. Banned for decades. Calder's mind moved slowly. Someone tried to kill me. No. Someone tried to make you kill someone else. If I had not been there. She stopped. Calder understood. If she had not talked him down. If the guards had attacked. If Ren had wandered in. He would have torn them apart. Who? He demanded. Who did this? Vera hesitated. Tell me. Branna saw Lord Corvain bring you the wine personally that night. Silence. Then Calder laughed. A terrible sound. Bitter. Broken. Corvain. Of course. You do not seem surprised. I am not surprised. I am a fool. He closed his eyes. He has been with me since I was a boy. After my mother died, my father could not stand to look at me. I reminded him too much of her. So he handed me to servants, to tutors. He opened his eyes, stared at the ceiling. Corvain was my tutor. He taught me letters, numbers. He was the only one who ever. His voice cracked. He told me I was special, destined for greatness. Vera said nothing, just listened. When my father died, Corvain became my chancellor, my advisor. I trusted him absolutely. And the brides? He chose them, all three. Calder's voice broke. He said he was helping me, finding someone suitable. He turned his head, met Vera's eyes. I did not choose them. They were strangers he brought to me, and I married them because he said it was necessary. Understanding dawned in Vera's expression. You never loved them. I did not know them long enough. I barely spoke to them. Corvain handled everything, the arrangements, even their daily schedules. He said it was best if I kept my distance, so I would not grow attached before they died, so I would not notice the pattern. He killed them. Calder's voice was barely a whisper. He let me believe I was cursed, broken, unlovable, and I believed him because he could not finish. Vera reached out, took his hand. Because he was all you had, she said softly. And we will do anything for the people we believe love us. Calder looked at their joined hands. Why would he do this? He asked. I gave him everything. Control. Vera's voice was quiet. As long as you are alone, you depend on him. As long as you believe yourself cursed, you cannot build a life beyond what he allows. She leaned closer. But you are not alone anymore, and I think that terrifies him. He stared at her. This woman who had walked into his hall with nothing but a child and the steadiest eyes he had ever seen. Why do you care? He asked. You came here for your village, for survival. You did not come here for me. No, she agreed. I did not. She looked down at Ren. But Ren chose you, and her judgment is better than mine has ever been. Her eyes lifted to his. You are not cursed, Calder. You are not broken. You have been deliberately isolated and systematically destroyed by a man who wanted you weak, and I will not let him finish the job. Something broke open in his chest. You barely know me, he said. I know enough. She smiled. Small, fierce, real. And Calder realized with a terror and wonder that stole his breath that he was falling in love with her. Ren stirred against his side, her eyes opened, sleepy, confused. Then she saw he was awake. She threw her arms around his neck. Calder froze, then his arms came up around her small body. He held her carefully, like she might break. Over her shoulder he saw Vera watching them, the tears on her face, the hope in her eyes. This is what family feels like, he thought. This is what I almost lost. He buried his face in Ren's hair and held on. In the corridor outside, a servant hurried past. She did not notice the figure standing in the shadows. Lord Corvain watched the closed door. His expression was calm, patient. She has complicated things, he thought, but not irreparably. He turned toward the west wing, toward the chambers where a certain Omega had left her child sleeping. A child who meant everything to her. A child who could be used. His footsteps faded into silence, and in the king's chambers, no one heard him go. Ren liked the castle now. She had not liked it at first. Too big, too cold, too many shadows that looked like the ones in the cottage where Mama had stopped breathing. But now there were wolves, and books with pictures, and Branna, who smelled like bread, and the king, who had sad eyes but smiled when she held his hand, and Vera, always Vera. Vera was sleeping now, really sleeping. She had been awake for 2 days watching over the king, and now she was curled in the chair by the fire. Ren sat on the bed, watching her. She is tired. I should let her rest. But Ren was hungry, and she knew where the kitchens were now. She slipped off the bed, crept to the door, squeezed through. The corridor was dim. Torches burned low. Ren padded forward on bare feet. Left at the tapestry, right at the statue, down the stairs. She was almost to the kitchens when she heard the voice. "Hello, little one." Ren froze. Lord Corvain stood at the bottom of the stairs. He was smiling. It was not a nice smile. "You should not be wandering alone," he said. "It is dangerous." Ren stepped back. "I have something for you." He held out his hand. In his palm sat a small wooden wolf. A gift. For being so brave? Ren looked at the wolf. It was pretty, but something felt wrong. The way he stood between her and the stairs. The way his eyes did not match his smile. Bad. Something whispered inside her. Bad man. She shook her head. Corvain's smile flickered. "Come now. Do you not want it?" She shook her head again. His expression changed. What replaced it made Ren's stomach turn to ice. "Difficult child," he said softly. He moved fast. His hand closed around her arm, and she tried to scream, but nothing came out. "Speak," she told herself. "Speak, speak, and speak." Nothing. Just silence. Corvain pulled her close. "You are going to help me," he said pleasantly. "You are going to be very useful indeed." He lifted her. Ren kicked, struggled, but he was too strong. He carried her through a door that led outside, into cold darkness. Ren twisted, looking back toward the castle. Vera, she thought desperately, please. But Vera was sleeping, and no one knew she was gone. Vera woke with a start. Something was wrong. "Ren?" She turned. The bed was empty. "Ren." She searched the chambers. Nothing. She ran. The kitchens were empty. Branaghe's quarters were dark. The library was silent. She found Branagh in the servants' hall. "Ren is missing." The color drained from Branagh's face. "How long?" "I do not know. I fell asleep." "Do not blame yourself. Think. Where would she go?" "The wolves." They ran. The wolf enclosure was peaceful. Senna lifted her head. No Ren. But there was something else. Footprints in the frost. Large ones, a man's boots. And smaller ones beside them for a few steps before they disappeared. Carried. "Corvain," Vera said. She followed the footprints toward the eastern gate. "Wake the king," she ordered. "Tell him everything. Bring soldiers." "You cannot go alone. Ren cannot scream. She cannot call for help. If I wait, she dies." Branagh hesitated, then nodded. "I will bring the king. He will find you." "He will." Vera did not know how she knew this. "He will always find us." She ran through the gate, into the forest. "Hold on, little bird. I am coming." The forest was a maze of shadows. Vera followed the trail. The path twisted, doubled back. Deliberate misdirection. She found the clearing when dawn was breaking. A hunting lodge stood at the far edge, abandoned, half collapsed, and in front of it stood Lord Corvain. Ren was in his arms, a blade pressed against her throat. Vera stopped at the edge of the clearing. "Ah," Corvain smiled. "The devoted mother. How touching. Let her go." "I think not. She is my guarantee of safe passage." "You are lying." "Perhaps." His smile widened. "But you cannot know for certain." Vera's hands clenched. "What do you want?" "What I have always wanted. Control." He tilted his head. "Do you know how long I have worked to shape that boy? 23 years. I raised him, molded him, made him into the weapon this kingdom needed. You made him miserable. I made him dependent." Corvain's voice sharpened. "A king who trusts no one but his chancellor. A king who believes himself cursed. A king who would never form attachments that might dilute my influence." He looked at Ren with disgust. "And then you came along. An Omega peasant with a mute orphan. You have undone years of work in weeks." "Good." His expression flickered. "You should be more afraid. I have buried villages. I have held dying children. You are a small man with a knife, Corvain. You do not frighten me." "Then perhaps this will." He moved the blade. A thin line of red appeared on Ren's throat. Vera froze. "That is better." Corvain's smile returned. Now, walk into that lodge and close the door. No. He pressed the blade deeper. Ren whimpered. I cannot save her. If I move, he kills her. If I do not move, he takes her. Vera, Ren whispered. Vera's head snapped up. Ren had spoken. Run, Ren said. Her voice was rusty, cracked. Please. And then she bit Corvain's hand. He screamed. The blade jerked away. And in that single moment, Vera moved. She did not reach them in time. But the wolf did. Calder had never run so fast in his life. The moment Branna's words had registered, Ren is gone, Corvain took her, Vera went after them alone. He had shifted. One moment human, the next wolf, tearing through the gates with Senna and 3 others at his heels. The scent trail burned in his nostrils. Fear, blood, Corvain's cologne, and beneath it all, Vera. He burst into the clearing just as Ren bit Corvain's hand. The Chancellor stumbled. The blade flashed, and Calder launched himself between them. The knife meant for Ren buried itself in his shoulder instead. Pain exploded through him. He crashed into Corvain, knocking the man flat. Blood sprayed across the snow. But Calder did not stop. He stood over his prey, teeth bared, every instinct screaming to bite, to tear, to end this. Corvain looked up at him, and for the first time, Calder saw fear in those calculating eyes. You would not, Corvain gasped. You are not a killer. I made sure of that. Calder lowered his muzzle. Let Corvain see his eyes. Calder! Vera's voice, soft, steady. He did not move. Calder, please, look at me. He turned his great head. She stood at the edge of the clearing, Ren clutched tight against her chest, both trembling, both alive. He does not deserve a quick death, Vera said. He deserves to stand trial, to have his crimes exposed, to watch everything he built crumble while he rots in a cell. Calder's hackles lowered. Kill him now, and he becomes a martyr. Let him live in shame instead. Calder looked at her, at the woman who had walked into his broken life and refused to let him stay broken. Then he looked at Ren. Run, she had said. Please. She had not asked him to kill. Calder stepped back from Corvain. The other wolves circled the Chancellor, blocking any escape. Corvain looked at Calder with pure hatred. This is not over. You are still the cursed king. Everything changes, Vera interrupted, because you no longer control the story. She looked at Calder. Bring him back alive. Let the kingdom decide his fate. Calder shifted. The transformation was smooth, controlled. He stood in the snow, wounded and bare, looking at the man who had stolen his entire life. Guards will be here soon, he said. You will wait for them. If you try to run, the wolves will stop you. Corvain's face twisted. I raised you. You gave me nothing but chains. Calder turned away. And I am done wearing them. The guards arrived within minutes. They took Corvain away in irons. Calder did not watch him go. He was kneeling in the snow, arms wrapped around Vera and Ren, holding them so tight he was not sure where he ended and they began. You came, Vera whispered. I will always come. Always. Ren pressed her face into his shoulder. She spoke, Vera said. Did you hear? She said my name. Calder pulled back to look at Ren's face, tear-streaked, exhausted, alive. You were very brave, he said softly. Ren's lip trembled. Then, in a voice like rustling leaves, I was scared. Being scared is not the opposite of brave. Being scared and doing it anyway, that is the bravest thing there is. Her small arms wrapped around his neck, and Calder held her, there in the blood-stained snow, and felt something settle into place. Family, he thought. This is what I am never letting go. 3 months later, spring came slowly to Ashenmoor. First the ice melted, then green shoots pushed through the black earth. Then Vera woke to bird song instead of wind. She stood at the window of the Queen's chambers, her chambers now, and watched Calder teaching Ren to throw knives. It was not a traditional skill for a child, but Ren had insisted. You are spoiling her, Vera had told him once. Absolutely, he had agreed. I intend to spoil her for the rest of my life. She watched them now, Ren's tongue poking out in concentration, Calder adjusting her grip, the knife flying wide, and both of them laughing. Ren was speaking regularly now. Full sentences. Questions. She still had quiet days, but she was finding her voice again. And Calder, the fearsome alpha king, was learning to laugh. The trial had been 2 months ago. Corvain was in a windowless cell now. He would spend the rest of his life there. Thornwick was recovering. Calder had sent supplies within a week. Grain, medicine, builders. Vera had returned once to see Marin's grave. They will live, she had whispered. Because of you. A knock at the door. Calder entered, dressed simply. No crown, no armor, just a man with a smile that transformed his face. She hit the target, he announced. You are joking. Dead center. First time. He was beaming. She is going to be terrifying when she grows up. She is your daughter. Of course she is terrifying. Your daughter. The formal adoption had taken place a month ago. The council wants to discuss the succession again, Calder murmured. The council can wait. They say an official marriage ceremony would... Calder. He stopped. Are you asking me to marry you or telling me what the council wants? Something vulnerable flickered across his face. I am asking. Not as a king. As a man who cannot imagine his life without you. Vera studied him. The scars. The hope. The fear he could not quite hide. I did not come here for love, she said. I came for grain stores and medicine. I know. And somewhere between saving my village and saving you, I found something I was not looking for. His hands tightened on her waist. Yes, she said. Yes? Yes, I will marry you. Because I love you, Calder. For a moment he said nothing. His eyes searched her face. Then he kissed her. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Vera laughed. The council will be pleased. I do not care about the council. I know. That is why I love you. He pressed his forehead to hers. Thank you. For what? For stepping forward. When no one else would. She thought about that day in the great hall. The silence. The fear. You were worth stepping forward for, she said simply. Below, in the courtyard, Ren threw another knife. It hit the target perfectly. She spun around looking for her parents. Found them watching from the window. She waved. They waved back. And somewhere in the dungeons, a man who had tried to destroy them all sat alone in the dark, listening to the distant sound of a kingdom healing. It would never stop.